My name is Kate. I married my husband, Joey, when I was 23. He was handsome, intelligent, and above all, the only person in the world who supported my dream of becoming an architect as if it was his own. We made our home in an apartment in downtown Chicago, firmly believing that a brilliant future lay ahead of us. Focused solely on my goal of one day owning my own architectural firm, I threw myself into my work without distraction. Joey always watched over me with pride. When I won my first design competition and was commissioned to design a small church in the suburbs, he rejoiced like a child and pulled me into a tight embrace. "See? I told you. You're the best architect out there." Those words were the fuel that kept me going. 3 years into our marriage, we naturally began to hope for a new addition to our family. My career was going well, and we were financially stable. It felt like the perfect time to build a wonderful home together. We would talk endlessly about that happy future we imagined. But contrary to our fervent hopes, that moment never came. Every month we would get our hopes up, only to be disappointed. Little by little, the smiles began to fade from our conversations. Unable to bear the growing anxiety, we decided to visit the most renowned fertility specialist in the area. After weeks of thorough testing, the day of the decisive consultation arrived. The doctor's words were more than enough to strip all the light from my world. "I'm sorry, Kate. Your body is in a condition that makes natural conception extremely difficult. In medical terms, you are infertile." In that moment, it felt as though all sound had vanished from the world. The words sounded unreal, like a foreign language, and all I could do was stare blankly at Joey's face twisting in pain beside me. Teetering on the edge of despair, I called my mother, Susan. I wanted, at the very least, for her to share in my pain and comfort me. But the words that came through the receiver were like shards of glass, tearing my heart to pieces. "Infertile? What did you say? Oh, what a shame. So in the end, you're just an empty vessel." Poor Joey. "To think you can't even fulfill your role as a woman. You're a complete failure." She hung up abruptly, and with that click, my heart shattered too. I collapsed to the floor and cried in silence. The person who saved me then was my father, Dan, calling to check on me. "Don't listen to your mother, Kate. Your worth has nothing to do with whether you can have children. You're my daughter, the one I'm most proud of in the whole world." My father's warm words were like a single ray of light cutting through the darkness. But back then, I had no idea that even that light was about to be swallowed by a deeper shadow already opening its jaws beside me. While I was taking comfort in my father's words, my mother was secretly plotting something that would destroy my entire life. After that cruel diagnosis, the air between Joey and me grew noticeably heavier. He still tried to show concern, but in the depths of his eyes I began to see something that hadn't been there before: pity and perhaps the faintest trace of irritation. "It's okay, Kate. We'll get through this together," he would say, pulling me into his arms. But for some reason, those arms felt unreliable and empty. That was around the time he started coming home later and later. A last-minute meeting came up, or dinner with a client ran late. The reasons were always work-related. As an architect myself, I understood the irregular hours of the job, so at first I suspected nothing. But there were several nights when I woke up in the middle of the night and heard his hushed voice from the living room. When I stepped out of the bedroom, he would hastily hang up and force a stiff smile. "Work call," he'd say. At some point, his phone was suddenly locked with a new password. What disturbed me even more was the presence of my younger sister, Ashley. "I came because I was worried about you," she said, and started to visit our apartment frequently. She would always show up carrying my favorite cakes or flowers, offering gentle words of concern for my health. But it didn't take long for me to realize her true focus wasn't me. Ashley's gaze was always fixed on Joey, standing beside me. "It must be hard for you too, Joey. Please keep supporting my sister," she would say. One weekend afternoon, it happened. I came home from work earlier than expected and heard the sound of the two of them laughing together in the living room. When I stepped into the room without thinking, the sight that met my eyes stopped me cold. There they were, Ashley and Joey, sitting close together on the couch, leaning in toward the same tablet screen. Ashley was laughing, her head resting on Joey's shoulder, while Joey, looking anything but displeased, gently stroked her hair. It was an intimacy that felt more like that of a long married couple than anything else, leaving no space for me to exist in that moment. When they realized I was standing there, both of them quickly pulled apart, looking awkward. So sorry. We just found this old funny video and Ashley's excuse didn't even register in my ears anymore. Doubt turned into certainty. I began watching Joey's actions the way a detective would, quietly searching for proof. And then, I found it. While he was in the shower one night, I opened the glove compartment of his car and discovered a receipt from the bar of a luxury hotel. The date matched the night he'd claimed to have had an unexpected meeting. Clutching the receipt in my hand, I waited for him in the living room. "What's this?" At the sound of my trembling voice, Joey's expression flickered with a hint of unease, but he quickly regained his composure and let out a deep sigh. That reaction alone told me everything I needed to know. I guess there's no point in hiding it anymore. What followed was a confession far more cruel and deliberate than I had ever imagined. He admitted that his relationship with Ashley had been going on for months, and behind it all was my own mother. "Your mom told me she can't give you what you want anymore. But Ashley can. She kept encouraging me to see her, saying it was for our future," Joey explained as if he were a victim himself. "At first, it was just to talk, to find ways to support you. But the more we met, the more I was drawn to her youth. And the fact that she's healthy enough to have children. In other words, my mother had offered my husband to my own sister. My family had been conspiring to corner me from the very beginning. That truth cut far deeper than the infidelity itself. And then he delivered the final blow. Ashley's pregnant. I wanted a child, Kate. He said it as calmly as if he were ending a business contract. I'm sorry, Kate. I don't want to hurt you, but I need a child who carries my genes. And Ashley can give me that. It's something you can't do anymore. Something you can't do anymore. Those words sliced through the softest part of my heart like a blade. My mother's earlier words, empty vessel, echoed again and again in my head. I couldn't even cry. I had been betrayed not only by the man I loved, but also by my only sister and even my own mother, discarded like I was nothing more than worthless junk. The divorce process moved forward with surprising speed and cold formality. I left the apartment filled with memories of Joey and moved into an old, small place on the other side of the city. I had no energy to start over. My days passed like an empty shell, staring out the window until night fell. The only person who stood by me was my father, Dan. He never took my mother or sister's side. He simply listened quietly to me and said firmly, "You did nothing wrong. I will always be on your side." A few days later, his voice shook, but his resolve was unshakable when he told me, "Kate, I've decided to divorce your mother. I can't stay in that family anymore." The words shocked me. "That, because of me? This isn't because of you. There are lines you simply don't cross as a human being. I'll leave, but as a father and a husband, I'll still fulfill my basic responsibilities. Just know that my heart will always be with you. Don't ever forget that." Hearing the pain in his voice on the other end of the line, I broke down and sobbed. Sometime after I deleted all my social media accounts to sever ties with the past, I received a message from a mutual friend. "You might not want to see this, but..." Attached was a single photograph. Ashley, wearing a pure white wedding gown, smiling blissfully. Beside her, Joey, his hand resting gently on her slightly rounded belly, grinning from ear to ear. And flanking them, beaming with pride, was my mother, Susan. That one photo shattered whatever scraps of hope I had left. I hurled my phone against the wall, collapsed to the floor, and screamed like a wounded animal. That was how the first chapter of my life came to a close, in total and absolute despair. For the first few months, it felt like I was wandering through a dense fog. My days were hollow, nothing but empty time slipping away. Morning after morning, I couldn't find a reason to get out of bed. I would lie there staring at the stain on the ceiling until, before I knew it, the sky outside my window had gone dark. I couldn't bring myself to focus on my work as an architect. Every project I'd been working on was handed over entirely to my assistant. The blueprints I had once poured my heart into now felt like nothing more than scraps of paper, disconnected from me entirely. What pulled me back into reality was a phone call from my father. "Kate, that church you designed was featured in a small column in an architecture magazine." At his words, I felt the faintest warmth seep into the ice that had gripped my heart. Yes, I still had this. Something neither Joey, nor Ashley, nor even my mother could ever take away from me. From that day on, I threw myself into my work. Every ounce of grief, anger, and emptiness I channeled into concrete, steel, and glass. I sketched and drafted day and night, built models, visited construction sites. In those moments, I could forget the nightmare I had endured. My designs became bolder, more powerful. I realized, almost wryly, that my wounds had given my creativity a deeper, more complex edge. Then one day, my father called to say, "There's someone I want you to meet." Honestly, I had no energy for new connections, but I couldn't turn down his request. I made my way to the restaurant he'd specified, my steps heavy. That's where I met Lucas. He was the son of one of my father's longtime friends and ran a renewable energy company. He didn't have Joey's flashiness, but his calm, intelligent eyes and the way he listened intently left a strong impression. "Your father has told me about you. He says you're an exceptional architect," he said, showing me a photo of the small church I had designed. "The way you've captured the light here is remarkable. It's as if the entire building is breathing." His words carried genuine respect, not polite flattery. He saw me, not my appearance, not my family background, but me, Kate the architect. It was a feeling I hadn't experienced in a very long time. That day, we talked endlessly about our work, and by the time we parted, my heart felt lighter, warmer than it had in months. After that, we naturally began seeing each other. Lucas never pried into my past. His quiet kindness was like gently peeling away a hardened scab, slowly healing the wound beneath. As our time together grew, I realized I was developing feelings for him. One night, a little over 6 months into our relationship, we were driving home after having dinner at a lakeside restaurant. In the car, I gathered my courage and spoke up, my voice trembling. "Lucas, there's something I need to tell you." He pulled over to the side of the road, turned off the engine, and waited silently. I was married before. We divorced because I found out I can't have children. I'm infertile. The moment the words left my mouth, I shut my eyes tightly. He might look at me with contempt or pity. Either way, I was ready for our relationship to end here. But after a brief silence, the voice I heard was calm and steady. "Kate, open your eyes." When I did, Lucas was gently holding my hands in his warm ones. "I love the way you design buildings full of light and beauty. I love your passion for your work. And yes, even the quiet, lonely smile you sometimes wear. I love all of Kate Manning. Whether we have children or not doesn't change the value of the future we'll build together." At that, tears poured down my face, not from sadness, but from a deep, soul-healing warmth. A year later, we had a small wedding. Lucas's parents knew my entire past, yet they embraced me and said, "We're so glad you're part of our family," holding me as if I were their own daughter. It was the kind of unconditional love my mother, Susan, had never given me. Life was peaceful, filled with comfort and the joy of being truly loved. Then one morning, I woke up feeling strangely different, an unfamiliar heaviness in my body, nausea in my chest. I thought it might be a cold, or just exhaustion from overwork. But when the symptoms persisted for weeks, Lucas insisted I see an obstetrician, just to be safe. In the examination room, the older female doctor kept glancing between my test results and my medical records with an expression of disbelief. "This is incredible. Your past diagnosis clearly states severe ovarian dysfunction leading to infertility. But She slowly looked up, her face breaking into a smile filled with both astonishment and joy. Kate, congratulations. You're pregnant. What? I thought I had misheard her. That couldn't be possible. After all, I was an empty vessel. There must be a mistake. I was diagnosed as infertile. The doctor smiled gently. Yes, it's nothing short of a miracle. In the medical world, there are rare cases like this. Sometimes, for reasons we still don't fully understand, functions that have been dormant can awaken again due to reduced stress or changes in living conditions. You've been given that miracle. That night, my hands trembling, I showed the ultrasound picture to Lucas. At first, he didn't seem to understand what he was looking at. But once the truth sank in, he pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly, yet as if I were something fragile, and together we cried out loud. 9 months later, I held in my arms the warm, tiny life that was the embodiment of our love, a baby girl with beautiful hair and gentle eyes that reminded me so much of Lucas. We named her Mia, our miracle child. The second chapter of my life began with her first cry, bathed in brilliant light. After Mia was born, my life felt completely fulfilled. My work as an architect was thriving, and Lucas adored Mia as though she were the most precious treasure in the world. If she cried at night, he would be the first to prepare her bottle, and whenever I was exhausted, he would tell me, "Rest today," and handle all the housework and childcare himself. My father was overjoyed at Mia's birth. Every weekend, he would visit us, doting on his first grandchild. He had already moved out and was in the process of divorcing my mother, but he continued to provide financial support, troubled by the state of the family home. "I've divorced your mother, but I'm still covering her and Ashley's living expenses," he confided one day, his voice weary. "Joey's become a complete drunk, and Ashley leaves her child with your mother so she can go out and party. If I didn't send money, Ashley's son wouldn't even get proper meals. It's pathetic. Dad, that's enough. You need to take care of yourself." When I said that, my father simply replied, "That's my final responsibility," and gave a faint, weary smile. His words gripped my chest tightly. Then, when Mia turned 3, my father passed away suddenly. He had been the only one to defend me when I was diagnosed as infertile, the only one who believed in me after my mother, sister, and ex-husband had betrayed me. I didn't realize how large a presence he was in my life until he was gone. His funeral was held at a church near my hometown. I returned with Lucas and Mia, my steps heavy. It was the first time I had seen them in the 5 years since that nightmare of a divorce. When I opened the door, I saw exactly what I had imagined, only worse. My mother, aged and worn down, deep shadows under her eyes, moved constantly to soothe a fussy little boy in her arms. His mother, Ashley, sat nearby in a flashy dress wholly inappropriate for a somber occasion, scowling as she fiddled with her phone, ignoring her crying child. On the couch, slouched deep into the cushions, was my ex-husband, Joey. All traces of the polished elite he once was had vanished. Now he was unshaven, gaunt, and reeking faintly of alcohol in his cheap suit. His eyes were vacant, not mourning my father, but yearning to escape the reality around him. They no longer resembled a family, more like strangers trapped together on a sinking ship. Though my parents were divorced, my father had continued to support them financially until the very end. Now, with that one lifeline gone, they seemed like parasites that had lost their host, drifting, directionless. When they noticed me, all eyes turned in my direction. My mother looked at me with an almost pitying expression and said, "Kate, I appreciate you coming, but you have no place here anymore." I said nothing. I simply stepped forward and placed a single flower before my father's portrait. At that moment, Mia came running to my side. "Mommy, is that Grandpa's picture?" I took her small hand and stood protectively beside her with Lucas. That was when I felt their stares shift from me to Mia. Joey's eyes went wide in disbelief as he stared at me. Ashley gave a derisive little laugh. "Did you adopt her?" "That doesn't suit you, Kate." My heart pounded, but I met Ashley's eyes and said quietly, clearly, "No, Ashley. Mia is my daughter. I gave birth to her. The air froze. My mother's face drained of color. Ashley was speechless. And Joey just kept staring at Mia, his expression one of utter disbelief. You were supposed to be infertile. The doctor said so, Joey shouted. The doctors say it's an extremely rare case. But this child is, without question, my daughter. I looked each of them in the eye, faces full of shock, and spoke quietly but firmly. I'm here today as a mother and as a daughter to attend my father's funeral. And now, we'll be leaving. As I turned to walk away with Lucas and Mia, my mother stopped me with a ferocity I could hardly believe. Wait, Kate. That child. Is she my granddaughter? A girl? Oh, my long-awaited little girl. She must be so beautiful. Come here. Her words made me feel something colder than anger, almost amusement. This is the child of the daughter you called an empty vessel and threw away. You have no right to call yourself her grandmother. That day, we left the church without another word. I saw the confusion and rising panic on the faces of my mother, sister, and ex-husband as we walked out. A few weeks after my father's funeral, I had to return to the family home for a meeting about his will. Naturally, Lucas and Mia came with me. In the heavy atmosphere of the living room, with my father's lawyer present, sat my mother, Susan, looking haggard, Ashley, restless and uneasy, and Joey, his face devoid of all expression. My father's will was straightforward. His estate would be split equally between Ashley and me. Once the formalities were completed and the lawyer had left, everyone began to rise from their seats until a low, tense voice broke the silence. Wait. The silence was broken by Joey's low, restrained voice. He slowly rose to his feet, pulled a document from his bag, and slammed it down on the table. Ashley, what the hell is this? All eyes turned to the paper. It bore the logo of a hospital, medical test results. I watched the color drain from Ashley's face. Joey continued, his voice shaking. I've always had this nagging feeling. That boy you had. He never looked like me. Every time I saw his face, every time I looked in the mirror, the doubt was there. But I told myself it couldn't be true. Admitting it would mean admitting that everything I threw Kate away for, everything we built, was a lie. Now, his gaze was fixed directly on me. But at your father's funeral, Kate, seeing your daughter, it broke something in me. You were told you were infertile, yet you had a child. If something impossible like that could happen, then maybe something unbelievable could be happening to me too. He jabbed a finger at the report. So I got tested. And here it is, I can't father children. I never could. His voice rose to a roar that shook the silent room. Which means the boy you gave birth to isn't mine. Ashley, whose child is he? That's impossible. He's yours. Ashley screamed. Oh my God. My mother gasped, nearly collapsing. It was like watching the exact same hell I'd once endured replay itself before me. Under Joey's relentless questioning, Ashley's lies crumbled. Sobbing, she admitted that during her relationship with him, she had been seeing multiple other men, and she didn't even know who the father of her child was. Joey's world seemed to collapse in that instant. He sank onto the sofa, then, moments later, stumbled forward and dropped to his knees before me. Kate, I'm sorry. I made an unforgivable mistake. I never understood you, or your worth. Please, give me another. I cut him off, my voice quiet but resolute. Joey, look at me. Your story is over. And there's no place for me in it anymore. At that, he fell silent, his sobs the only sound in the room. Then my mother, Susan, lunged at me, her expression desperate, clutching at me like someone grabbing the last thread of a spider's web. Kate, please. Don't abandon us. Her plea was no longer about seeing her granddaughter. Ashley's child. Nobody knows who the father is. She leaves all the childcare to me and goes out every day. Joey's drowning in alcohol, barely holding on to his job. Your father divorced me as soon as he learned how we betrayed you. A. And even then, he pitied us enough to keep supporting us financially. But now he's gone. If you don't help us, we're going to lose everything. Her face was streaked with tears and snot as she gripped my clothes. So I'm begging you. You and your husband are successful, aren't you? Mia is our only hope. The last hope of this family. I gently removed her hands from me. Then, in the same words she had once thrown at me, I said, Mother, I am the daughter you called an empty vessel and discarded like trash. And now you want to make me your source of income? This will be the last time we ever meet. I took Lucas and Mia's hands and turned my back on the wreckage of my former family, leaving that house forever. In the car, I watched through the rearview mirror as the house, steeped in despair, grew smaller and smaller. And yet, my heart felt strangely calm. This wasn't the satisfaction of revenge. It was the certainty that my life was finally, truly beginning. Now beside me is my husband Lucas, who accepts and loves all of me. His parents treat me even better than their own daughter, and every weekend we gather around a home-cooked meal for warm, joyful family time. And in my arms is our miracle child, Mia. When I look at her unguarded, radiant smile, even the most painful memories of the past feel like nothing more than a distant old film. Blood alone does not make a family. To love, to respect, to believe in one another no matter what. To share both joy and sorrow, and to support each other through it all. That is what makes a real family. And now I know that in my heart.